The courtroom was quiet. Not the normal kind of quiet, but the heavy kind. The kind that presses down on your chest. The kind that tells you something has already been decided. The defendant stood still, hands folded, eyes forward, not looking at the jury, not looking at the judge, because he already knew. Everyone in that room believed the case was finished. The prosecutor had closed their argument. The defense had nothing left to say. The jury had already leaned back in their seats, the way people do when their minds are made up. Even the spectators were preparing to leave. Another case, another ruling, another name that would disappear into court records. The officer at the center of the case sat calmly at the defense table, uniform pressed, back straight, face blank. He had testified earlier that day, said it was routine, said he followed procedure, said there was no threat. And on paper, everything supported him. The report was clean. The timeline looked normal. The language was perfect. Too perfect. The victim wasn't present in court. Some said it was because he was scared. Others said he just didn't want to relive it. And without him there, the story felt incomplete. But no one seemed to care. The judge adjusted her glasses and glanced down at the file. She had seen cases like this before. Hundreds of them. Most ended the same way. She cleared her throat. The courtroom straightened. This court. She paused. Just for a second, her eyes stopped moving. Not at the officer, not at the jury, at something on the page. A small detail. Something almost everyone else had missed. She leaned closer. Read it again. Then once more. The pause stretched longer than it should have. People shifted in their seats. The officer glanced up. For the first time that day, his jaw tightened because the judge wasn't following the script. She flipped to another page, then another. The silence returned, thicker now. The judge looked up, not angry, not emotional, just focused. Before I rule, she said calmly, I want to review one item. The prosecutor froze. The defense lawyer stiffened. The officer's eyes flicked toward his attorney. The judge continued, the bodycam footage. A murmur spread through the room. The defense attorney spoke quickly. Your Honor, the footage was already submitted. The report. I know, the judge said, but I want to see it. Come here. Now. Double quotes. The officer's hand curled into a fist under the table, because everyone thought the footage had helped him. But the judge wasn't looking at what was shown. She was thinking about what wasn't. The screen flickered to life. Grainy dot. Comma wide. Dash. Angle. Chest dash. Mounted. Dot. The familiar body cam perspective. At first, nothing seemed unusual. A routine call. Late evening. Dimly lit street. The officer's voice came through the speaker's comm. Controlled, sir. Step back. A man stood a few feet away. Hands visible. No sudden movements. The officer approached. The judge leaned forward slightly. The courtroom watched. Most of them had already seen parts of this. That's what they told themselves. But watching something again with fresh eyes changes things. Keep your hands where I can see them. The man complied. The timestamp ticked forward second by second. The offer circled slightly. The man asked a question, his voice barely audible through the static. What did I do? No aggression. No resistance. Just confusion. The officer responded sharply. Don't argue! The judge's eyes narrowed. She wasn't watching the man. She was watching the officer's hands. The angle shifted. The camera shook. There was a brief blur. The kind body cams always showed during movement. Then the audio crackled, and suddenly the video skipped. Just for a moment. Now, most people wouldn't notice. It looked like a normal glitch. But the judge did. Three-loop. She raised a hand. Pause. Pause. The room went still. The clerk froze the frame. The timestamp was visible. She pointed at the screen. Play that section again. The video rolled back. Played forward again. Barely noticeable, but undeniable. Ah! The judge turned to the attorneys. How long is the gap? The clerk checked 11 seconds. Your Honor, 11 seconds. Not minutes, not horse. But in court Sakis matter. The defense attorney spoke fast. Bodycams occasionally drop frames, it's common. And the judge nodded slowly, yes. She said they idle. Then she looked back at the screen. But they don't usually resume with someone already on the ground. The courtroom leaned forward. The video resumed. The man was now face down. Breathing hard, the officer's voice was louder, more, "No, stop resisting." But the man wasn't moving. The judge didn't speak. She let the video play. Let everyone absorb it. Then she asked a question that changed the room. What happened during those 11 seconds? No one answered. The officer stared straight ahead. The defense attorney hesitated. The prosecutor said nothing. The judge looked directly at the officer. "Officer," she said evenly, "your report states the subject lunged." She tapped the paper. She tapped the paper, but before the gap. His hands never moved. The officer swallowed. "That happened during the camera malfunction," he replied. The judge nodded again, then asked quietly, "Then why does the audio cut to silence?" The judge leaned back, and for the first time, the balance of the courtroom shifted. This was no longer routine. This was no longer over, because everyone now understood something important. Tosi missing 11 seconds weren't empty. They were hidden, and whatever happened in them was about to come out. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam the gavel. She did something far more dangerous. Say waited. Silence filled the courtroom again, but this time it felt different. The silence wasn't neutral. It was accusatory. The officer shifted slightly in his chair. "Not much. Just enough for people to notice." The judge broke the quiet. "Officer," she said. "Come on." Elena walked to the front. Her hands were shaking. The judge's voice softened. "You understand you're under oath." "Yes. Yes. Tell us what you saw." Elena hesitated, then spoke. "I heard shouting." Primera looked up. The man had his hands up. He kept saying he didn't understand. The officer stared at her now. Elena continued. The officer moved closer. The camera on his chest was facing away from me, but I could see the man clearly. Sepa usted. That's when the officer stepped in, and the man went down. The courtroom held its breath. Was the man attacking the officer? The judge asked. No. No. Did he lunge? No. Did he raise his hands? They were already up. The judge nodded. And what happened next? Elena's voice shook. The officer looked down and tapped his chest. Silence. Ta, Beth. Ta, Beth. The judge repeated. Yes. Like he was checking something. The judge closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. That would be the Bodycam. The officer's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this witness was never disclosed because no one asked. The judge replied coldly. She turned back to Elena. Did anything happen immediately after the tap? Yes. Elena said. The officer stepped back. Then he started shouting commands, like the camera was already recording again. The courtroom understood. All at once, the 11 seconds. Te, tap. Te, tap. Te, restart. The judge looked directly at the officer. Officer, she said, voice steady but sharp. Stand up. Stand up. Rose slowly. This court finds sufficient cause to suspend your testimony. Gasps filled the room. She continued. And to order a full investigation into possible evidence tampering. The gavel came down. Hard. This case is not over, she said. It is only beginning. The officer sat down. Not as a professional, but as a suspect. And for the first time since the trial began, everyone knew the truth. Had survived those missing 11 seconds. The courtroom emptied slowly, not because the judge ordered it, but because everyone needed air. Outside, reporters were already gathering. Whispers turned into headlines within minutes. Bodycam evidence questioned. Officer under investigation. Inside the police department, Phones started ringing, one call after another. The chief hadn't even finished reading the court order when Internal Affairs walked in. No knock, no warning, just badges and files. "We need access to Officer Daniels' equipment," one of them said. The chief frowned. "For routine protocol, for potential tampering." That word changed everything. Tampering meant intent. Intent meant criminal exposure. The chief stalled. "Let me check with legal." Internal Affairs didn't blink. "We already did." Across the hall, Officer Daniels sat alone in a small room. No uniform jacket, no badge on his chest, just a man staring at a wall. His phone buzzed. Once. Twice. He didn't answer because he already knew who it was. E's partner. The same partner who'd been standing 10 feet away that night. The door opened. Assini stepped inside. "Daniels," he said quietly, "did you touch your camera?" Daniels didn't respond. The captain sighed. "Because the logs say more than a tap." Daniels' head lifted. "What do you mean?" "They show a disconnect." Followed by a manual reset. Daniels' jaw tightened. "That's not illegal." The captain leaned in. "Unless it was intentional." Silence. Outside the room, Internal Affairs was reviewing something else, not just one video. A pattern. 11 seconds. 9 seconds. 9 seconds. 14 seconds. Different dates. Different dates, different locations. Same officer, same type of incident, same missing moments. One investigator whispered, "This isn't a glitch." Another replied, "It's a habit." Back in the interrogation room, the captain spoke again. "You were trained better than this." Daniels snapped. "You weren't there." "No." The captain stayed calm. "You're right, but the camera was supposed to be." That line hit harder than a punch. Daniels leaned back. His confidence was gone now. All that remained was calculation. 2 days later, the courtroom reconvened. But this time, the energy was different. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was an exposure. The judge entered. Everyone stood. She didn't waste time. "Before we proceed," she said, "I want the record to reflect new evidence." The prosecution shifted uneasily. The defense looked confused. She continued. "Internal Affairs has submitted a preliminary report." The clerk distributed copies. Paper rustled. Eyes widened. The judge spoke one sentence. "Officer Daniels is not the only case." A wave moved through the room. The judge turned to the screen. Up came a timeline. Dates, times. Times, video, files, red gaps highlighted across multiple incidents. "This court finds," she said slowly, "a recurring pattern of missing footage during moments of physical escalation." The officer's lawyers stood. "Your Honor, this is beyond the scope." "No," she cut in. "This is the scope." She looked directly at Daniels. "Officer, how many times did your camera fail?" Daniels hesitated. "I don't know." The judge nodded. "That answer," she said, "is no longer acceptable." She turned to the jury. "You will disregard Officer Daniels' testimony in its entirety." A collective gasp. The defense attorney's face went pale. The judge wasn't done. "And I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal review." The gavel struck hard. The sound echoed. Daniels sat frozen. His career didn't end In that moment, it collapsed. Outside, cameras flashed. The headline spread fast. Officer's testimony thrown out. Bodycam gaps. Under criminal review, but inside the judge's chambers. Something else was happening. She stared at the report. Then at one line, circled in red. Supervisor approval. Granted. She picked up the phone. "Get me the supervising officer," she said, because now this wasn't about one man. It was about who allowed it. And who benefited from silence. The missing 11 seconds had opened a door no one could close again. The judge didn't sleep that night. Not because of pressure. Not because of the media, but because of one name, the supervising officer. The same name that appeared quietly at the bottom of every report. Never highlighted, never questioned, until now, at 6:12 a.m., an encrypted email landed in the court's secure inbox. No sender name, no subject, just one sentence. I was told to approve it. Attached was an audio file. The judge listened alone. A man's voice. Low, nervous. "I didn't delete anything myself," the voice said, "but I signed off, knowing it would happen." Pause. It told me it was for officer safety. They said the footage could be misinterpreted. They said it would protect the department. Another pause. Another pause. And I believed them. Then I believed. The voice cracked. Until I saw what was missing. By noon, the courthouse was locked down. Not for danger. For control. Internal affairs arrived again. This time with warrants. Computers were seized. Hard drives removed. Emails cloned. In a small conference room, a woman sat alone. Officer Rachel Moore. 12 years. On the force. No complaints. No suspensions. She was the one who sent the file. Her hands shook as she spoke. "I wasn't supposed to hear the call," she said, "but the door was open." She described the meeting, how supervisors discussed footage like a liability, how missing seconds were called cleanups, how some videos were reviewed before ever being logged. "They said," she whispered, "if the public never sees it, it never happened. Say, look up." But it happened. Across town, Officer Daniels watched the news alone. His name was everywhere now. But what scared him wasn't exposure. It was isolation. No calls from supervisors. No messages from colleagues. The system that once protected him had quietly stepped back. Because systems don't fall with people. They sacrifice them. That evening, a press conference was announced. Not by the police. By the court. The judge stood behind the podium. No escape. No hesitation. "This court has reason to believe," she said, "that evidenced manipulation extended beyond one officer." Gasps. "And that it was enabled." The word hit like a hammer. Enabled. She ended with one line. "Justice cannot function in edited time." The fallout was immediate. Funding was frozen. Oversight committees were summoned. Federal investigators stepped in quietly, very carefully, because when the system investigates itself, it moves in shadows. Officer Daniels was called in again. This time, no captain. No friendly faces. Just 2 federal agents. One question. "Who taught you how to do it?" Daniels stared at the table. "They didn't teach," he said. "They suggested." The agent leaned forward. "Who?" Daniel swallowed. Names came out slowly. Supervisors. Training officers. A legal advisor. Not orders. Expectations. Outside, Officer Moore was placed on administrative leave. Not for lying. For speaking. Her badge was taken. Her weapon locked away. But something had changed. She wasn't scared anymore. Because the truth was no longer hers alone. The judge received another report, this one thicker. More names, more gaps. The pattern was undeniable now. Missing footage didn't protect officers. It protected narratives, and narratives protected power. In the courtroom, the jury was brought back. The judge addressed them directly. "You are not here to decide policy," she said. "You are here to decide truth. C'est paussé, and truth does not disappear for 11 seconds. The prosecution tried to pivot. They argued intent was unclear. That technology failed. The judge shut it down. When failure repeats itself, she said, it stops being failure. She turned to the defendant's table, the man whose life started this case. He hadn't spoken much. Now, estud. They erased. "The moment I was scared," he said. "They erased. The moment I didn't fight back." Silence. No one interrupted. He finished with one sentence. "He survived." He survived because someone forgot to erase everything. The courtroom didn't applaud. They didn't need to. Because everyone understood one thing now. This case was never about 11 seconds. It was about what happens when people decide which moments matter and which can vanish. And the system had been exposed, doing exactly that. The courtroom was silent again, but this time it wasn't tired silence. It was fear. Everyone understood what was at stake now. Not just a verdict, not just a man's freedom, but a system that had been exposed in its rawest form. The jury returned. No eye contact, no expressions. Just wait. The foreperson stood, hands shaken slightly. "We have reached a verdict." The judge nodded. Pro se. A breath was taken somewhere in the room. "On the charge of assault under color of authority, we find the officer guilty." The word hit hard, not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. Officer Daniels didn't move, didn't react, didn't look surprised, because somewhere along the way, he had already realized this wasn't about him anymore. The judge thanked the jury, then did something unusual. She spoke directly to the courtroom. "This verdict does not represent the end of accountability," she said. "It represents the beginning." C'est paussé. C'est paussé. This court formally refers 3 supervisory officers and 1 departmental legal advisor for obstruction and evidence manipulation review. Gasps. Someone in the back whispered, "They're actually doing it." The judge's final line in the courtroom was calm. "Justice does not survive secrecy." The gavel struck. Outside, the cameras exploded. Headlines raced across the country. "Officer convicted after bodycam gaps exposed. Supervisors under criminal review." But the most important moment didn't happen on camera. It happened in a hallway. The man who was once on trial stood face to face with Officer Moore, the whistleblower. He didn't thank her. He didn't need to. Just nodded, and she nodded back, because both of them knew the truth doesn't always win, but when it does, it costs everything. 6 months later, the story wasn't trending anymore. No breaking news banners, no nightly debates, but the damage was done. Quietly, permanently. Officer Daniels was sentenced. Not the maximum, but enough to end a career. Enough to mark a record forever. The supervising officers resigned. Not in handcuffs, in press releases. Personal reasons, family matters. The legal advisor was disbarred. No ceremony, no apology. Just a name removed from a website. The police department announced reforms. New policies, new training, new oversight. But policies don't erase memory. Inside the department, something else changed. Cameras were no longer seen as protection. They were seen as witnesses. Officer Moore never returned to patrol. She transferred departments. Lower rank, lower pay, higher peace. In an interview months later, she was asked one question. Was it worth it? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "They were already erasing time. I just refused to erase myself." The judge retired quietly. No scandals, no speeches. But in her final written opinion, she left one sentence. A sentence that would be quoted again and again. Truth does not disappear because it is inconvenient. The Bodycam footage, it was never fully released. Some parts were sealed forever. But it didn't matter anymore because the most important thing was no longer missing. Belief had shifted, and for the first time, people didn't ask what happened in those 11 seconds. They asked why anyone thought they could hide them at all. The final image is simple. A camera, still, recording, not blinking. Because justice doesn't need perfection. It only needs honesty. And this time, the camera stayed on.